Hey everyone, welcome back to Today in Tech. I'm Juliette Beauchamp, and I'm here with Computer World Executive Editor Ken Mingus, as well as Macworld Executive Editor Michael Simon. Topic of the day is Windows 11. The release happened just 2 days ago on Tuesday, if you're watching this on Thursday, and there's a lot that looks, there's a lot that's new, there's a lot that's also kind of the same. So I figured this would be a good time to talk about, what it looks like. Maybe it looks a little bit like Mac OS, and then also some Android app integration. Later in the show, we will also have Preston Gralla join, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about the enterprise play, some hardware security requirements, and so on. So thank you both so much for calling in and joining me today. So I guess, like I said, released on Tuesday, not a ton of people are using it necessarily. I know certainly IT teams are not immediately deploying it, but I want to talk.
Better not be.
I want to talk a little bit, I guess, about the changes. So, Ken, do you mind if I throw to you and talk a little bit about what's new? And I mean, I know that this was kind of a surprise announcement when it happened a few months ago.
Correct. Yeah. The thing about Windows 11 is that nobody expected Windows 11 until Microsoft announced that it would be coming over the summer. And, it is new and improved in the sense that it has a smoother look. The start menu's in a different place, which is, what you were alluding to earlier, that it kind of, in some ways, mimics the dock in Mac OS. But the thing about it is it's really more like a version of Windows 10 Plus. It could easily have been, I think Preston Gralla, who we'll have on later, in his review for Computer World, said this could easily have been released as 10.25 or 10.5, because it really doesn't change a whole lot. The big issue here that both individuals and companies have to consider are the hardware requirements, because Microsoft has made a big deal that, it's bolstering security with this particular rollout. And I think that's why it decided it could actually make a jump from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Nobody wants to be told they got to go out and buy a new PC for Windows 10, the 2021 version. But if it's a new operating system, even just for marketing speak purposes, people are more likely to upgrade down the road. But as you said, it just rolled out on Tuesday. It's going to be a very slow rollout.
Mm-hmm.
Windows 10 is not going anywhere. I think support on Windows 10 ends in 2025. So there's basically a long exit ramp for people and companies that are looking to get off 10, and a very long entrance ramp for Windows 11. So I think Preston's basic advice was, it's a good solid operating system. It's, worth upgrading when you want to upgrade, but you don't have to rush to do it. One other thing I should point out that's new, quote unquote new, is the way Microsoft is trying to integrate Microsoft Teams.
Mm-hmm.
Given all that's gone on over the last 18 months with the pandemic, and the fact that so many people are using their computers to collaborate with each other remotely, whether they're in the office talking to people at home or vice versa, or everybody's at home. Teams has seen a lot of uptake over the last year and a half, as a lot of collaboration apps have. And so what Microsoft has done is kind of put, access to Teams more front and center, for users who are going to be using the Windows 11. So it seems to be a good solid operating system. It's got some tweaks and changes that'll make it useful. You don't have to upgrade right away, especially if you've got older hardware. You can wait until that hardware wears out in a couple of years and then upgrade. But in the meantime, I do like the look of it. I mean, I haven't specifically used it. I'm more of a Mac guy. I haven't used Windows 11 yet, but based on all the stuff that I've seen, it looks nice. I mean, Michael, what do you think? It looks very Mac OS?
Yeah, I think you like it because it was literally made for you. I mean, from what I read, there's like a couple thousand people using Windows 11 and they're all journalists.
Yeah.
Like every article I've read said, don't upgrade right now. And to be fair to Microsoft, they made it real easy to not upgrade. They're not abandoning Windows 10 for a long time. The hardware requirements are relatively stringent,
Right.
as far as Windows are concerned. And, there was a lot of backlash about that, rightfully so. But in my mind, this Windows 11 is for your new PC, not your existing one. And the way I see that is the people, they want more people like us, I guess, or younger people who use iPhones, have maybe used a Mac, certainly an iPad, and are PC curious, we'll say. We were just talking earlier. I just bought my son a desktop for Christmas. I bought it now because I hear that they're going to be hard to buy later. And he's an iPad guy. He knows Apple,
Mhm.
but he watches YouTube, and he sees and he said, Dad, I want to play blah blah game. And I would Google it, be like, oh, you can't. You don't have a PC. And this happened numerous times. So I finally said, all right, I'll look into it. So as much as I hate to admit it, I'm going to buy my son a Windows 11
We need
machine.
to stop. Are you sure Gabe doesn't watch these videos? Are you giving away the game right now? The Christmas game? Come on, Santa.
He's not. Well, I mean, if he finds this, then I guess I did give it away.
Okay. Sorry, Gabe.
He
So
watches Mr. Beast and things. I don't think I'm popping up in that algorithm.
Well, let me ask you, Michael. Okay, so as someone who is buying or just bought a Dell, will that come with Windows
Yes.
11, or will it come with?
It
It will
will.
come with 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
And based on, I mean, I don't know for certain how all this works, but because I'm a Mac person, but on the Apple side, once the new operating system comes out, when you buy a new Mac, you get the newest OS.
right.
And that seems to be the same thing with Windows. Like, as I was saying, Windows 11 it's very much Windows 10 with the new coat of paint,
Mhm.
and one that people don't really like. They changed things that people are used to.
The start menu.
It's not unlike the difference between, like, well, it was more extreme, but from Mac OS 9 to Mac OS 10, like Mac OS 10 was for new Macs. Yes, you could upgrade your old one, and a lot of people did, but it was mainly for, this is the way forward. This is the new OS. This is our new look, our new platform. It was different because it was a massively different architecture.
It was beyond just look.
Of course.
That was a complete re-architecture.
But the people who were Mac OS stalwarts,
Yeah.
they were like, well, what is this? Why is everything different? Why is it all blue and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
And it's a similar type of thing. People who know Windows, people who use Windows day in, day out, they're firing their Windows 11 machine up and saying, like, well, what the hell? Why is the start centered? And why are there widgets? And even the Teams thing you were talking about, that's FaceTime. Like, it is very much Mac OS, but with the Windows, the Windows stuff. That's the way I see it.
Do you think that's intentional? Do you
Oh
think?
yeah, of course, absolutely
Well,
intentional.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd be surprised. I guess I don't think of Microsoft as taking a look at Apple's operating system and saying, we want to copy that. They haven't done a lot of that in the past.
Well, you can say.
I mean, I know that they
kind
trade
of.
back and forth, and
Yeah.
when some feature comes up, it shows up on the other. But okay, I mean, I really have not thought that Microsoft was specifically
I
copying.
mean, listen, maybe I'm way off base, but there are several features that are pretty obviously lifted from macOS. Again, the taskbar center, that's a dock.
Mhm.
We have widgets that are very similar. Teams integration is basically FaceTime.
Especially because
different
it's
desktops
a consumer
now have different
play.
backgrounds, and that's a macOS thing. Like, we are very much in macOS, in the macOS environment, and it runs Android apps too. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, do talk
Yeah.
about that. I want to hear.
So
that's
that's another. Obviously Microsoft doesn't have a mobile platform,
Hmm.
so Android's the thing, and it's not live yet, but you'll be able to, just like on Chrome, basically have access to the Play Store and download Android apps onto your device. Now, it's not going to be like Catalyst, in the sense that developers are not going to retool their Android apps to work better on Windows. They're going to be Android apps on your PC. So they're not going to be optimized. They're not going to be pretty. They're not going to be, like full screen, nice, all that stuff that
the
you're used to
rationale
on
for
Windows.
doing that. That's what I haven't figured out yet.
I think the rationale is to create that ecosystem
Okay.
that they don't have.
Okay.
They've famously tried Windows Phone, failed miserably,
Didn't do so well with
didn't
that.
do well at all.
No.
And that was it. They completely missed that boat. That was
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer's era.
Yeah.
He laughed at the iPhone, didn't miss the boat completely, and by the time he got in his canoe and tried to catch up with it, it was long gone. And that was that. They just cut rank and left. I mean, they make an Android phone. The Microsoft Duo, it's Android. that has Windowsy stuff in it, like it runs, it has the dual screen Word and Excel and stuff like that. But it's an Android phone. So Windows and Android are not, an anathema to each other. They are Microsoft is understanding that in 2021 that the future is mobile, and they don't have that. They're just complete. You can say, well, they have the Surface stuff, and they have portable PCs. They don't have a phone. They don't have a phone platform. So Android's, that's it. They do integrate with iOS a bit as well. They have an app and stuff, but Android is the one, if they're going to really build this ecosystem forward, it's got to be Android.
Question. Here's one of the things, what, Juliet, you were talking earlier about some of the changes in Windows 11. One of the things that's been sort of gradually happening, even in Windows 10, has been the disappearance of Cortana, the
right.
voice assistant that just never really worked very well. And I mean, even more so, I think it was even more problematic in some ways than Siri is, and that's saying a lot. And it's sort of surprising because it does seem like there is a lot of energy and development around voice as a UI. So to see Cortana kind of, gradually disappear or become a shell of itself with Windows 11, it sort of surprises me. Do you see that the same way, Michael, or do you think that makes sense just to deprecate it?
I don't even know. I mean, it's not even on by default in Windows 11. It's so strange that, like, Siri, I don't know how many people are using Siri on their Mac, but it's there.
Yeah,
I don't either. I don't use it.
Ever present if you want it.
Right, it's there.
Like it's good for accessibility issues.
Sure. I mean, it has its place, and I still hold on to the dream that one day Apple will make it better. But Cortana, it wasn't bad. It was fine. It, whatever you want to call it, it was fine. Yeah. But Windows 11 is just like, no, like it's there, but we're going to have it off. And most people, let's face it, most people who buy a device don't dive into the settings to turn on things that aren't turned on by default. They use the defaults. That's why Safari is the biggest mobile browser, and why Apple decided to make its own Maps app, because people use defaults. They don't change things unless you're a aficionado, and I don't think they're turning on Cortana either. Like, it's just Microsoft just decided, I guess, that this isn't really working for us, and that's it. I suspect in some future version of Windows 11 that it'll be gone, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, a lot of it depends on the back end, and the reason I ask about that, and Preston included this in the review he did on Windows 11 for us, talking about Cortana. He had done a story this summer about trying to get valid and correct COVID-19 and vaccine information. And when he would ask Cortana questions, it literally could not provide anything, I mean, even the most basic information. And that, of course, ties into, sort of the search engine that's behind the voice.
Sure.
And it was sort of surprising because, Microsoft has Bing. They should be able to do the most basic things. Like, I think one of the questions he asked Cortana, does, the vaccine put a microchip in me? And it was basically, the response was, I don't know the answer. It's like, that's just kind of weird. So maybe it's a good thing that Cortana is being, put in mothballs, more or less.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, it really speaks to just how hard this stuff is and how easy, Google and Amazon make it look. It's not. It is hard to build out this infrastructure. We call it AI. It's not AI. It's people behind the scenes pouring through this stuff and making sure that it understands what you're saying and learns from your conversation. Sure. But it's not pulling this stuff out of thin air. You have to put in the resources and the effort and the energy to make sure that these things work.
Right. I was wondering if we can touch on a little bit more the Android app integration. It's not available yet. I think it's supposed to be available in the coming months, but I personally have never messed around with one of the Apple Silicon Macs and using any mobile apps on it. Have either of you tested that out? What's that like?
Yeah, well, it's different than this. So I haven't used Windows 11 Android stuff. Well, it's not out. I don't know if it was out in the previews, but I've used it on Chrome. So the way it works on Chrome OS is you have the Play Store, and you basically have access to whatever you want. and it
Mhm.
opens up a little window. And based on the images Microsoft has, it's similar.
Okay.
So it's literally a floating window with an Android app inside.
Kind of works in a layer on top of
Yeah,
Windows.
Okay.
right. So you can expand it full screen, and it may or may not look good. We don't know. It depends on what the Android app, if it has a tablet size, whatever it is.
Mhm.
On Mac, you have to physically go in there and say, allow this on the Mac. The developers have to do some work, or at least allow it. And even then, like it's Macified, so to speak. You can kind of tell that it was designed for the iPhone. Like even on some of Apple's apps, like you can kind of tell, but they feel and look and operate like desktop
Unified.
apps.
Yeah,
There's
Okay.
different
unified look.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's different menus. There's different buttons. It doesn't look like an iPhone app on your Mac. So they're quite different in that regard. Now there's drawbacks to that in the sense that the developer has to do work. So if they don't, you can't use it. Like you can't just go into the App Store, iOS App Store, and download whatever you want and use it on your Mac.
Well, also iOS apps are designed for touch
That's right.
and
Yeah.
things on the desktop, so obviously the way things work and how you navigate through them and access menus, et cetera, is going to be very different on a desktop.
And all that stuff. And I've found on Chrome, some apps are just not viable. Like they just don't
Sure.
work. Some of them crash. Like there's issues there because there's not really anyone that's policing this stuff. So for lack of a better word. So when anything goes, some things don't.
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that's good to know. I'm sure it'll be interesting once the Android app integration rolls out, what that looks like. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, as we sort of transition here shortly for Preston to come on, I'm wondering what, like, sort of the big use case is for using a mobile app on like any sort of desktop or laptop system. I guess it's like, I mean, for a consumer, I can see it's nice. Like, you can scroll through your Instagram, even though Instagram has a website, or your TikTok, what have you.
You'd have to have something on mobile that you don't have on the desktop
Sure.
to make it make sense. Because if you're, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong again, but porting a mobile app to the desktop is not necessarily a way to get to the ideal experience, especially if the app is originally on the desktop, was developed for the desktop. And you've got some branch of it that was designed for mobile, and then you're bringing the mobile version back to the desktop. It's like, desktop apps are going to work best and look best on the desktop, and mobile apps are going to be best on mobile, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think it's just some, call it desperation if you want to, but they don't have that ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Apple is killing it. That's basically what made Apple Apple. It started with the iPod. Apple doesn't sell a product, they sell an ecosystem. So you use the iPhone, you want to go to the Mac. You use the Mac, you want to check out the iPhone. They used to sell the iPod, it only worked with the Mac, then they opened it up to Windows, but it's still, they used to call it the halo effect. So you use one product and you want to use others. And I think Microsoft's trying to kind of replicate that with Android and Windows. Because,
Okay.
I used Android for a while, and it does not play nicely with Mac OS at all.
Sure.
They're very separate worlds. There are some apps that sync and stuff, but
Mhm.
it's not as easy as the iPhone Mac integration, iCloud Drive, all that stuff. So that's the logical use case, is to try to get that system in place with OneDrive and the Microsoft apps and Office and the things that we know work on both. Try to get that seamless. So if you're using the Galaxy S21, you're in the market for a new computer, new PC, maybe I'll check out Windows. Oh, I can put my app on there.
Sure.
It's that
Mhm.
mentality, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, thank you both so much for chatting a little bit about Android app integration, how it looks compared to how Windows 11 looks and feels compared to Mac OS. So, Michael, it's been great to have you here. We're going to bring Preston Gralla in, contributing editor for Computer World, and we're just going to touch a little bit on, his first impressions. He's had his hands on it, what it looks like. We do definitely want to talk about the hardware requirements and the security requirements, which can definitely be a little bit confusing. And also importantly, we will go over some of the rollout, and also whether or not you should upgrade, which I know is kind of the $1 million question right now. So Preston, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad you could be here. So like I said, you've had your hands on it. What do you think?
It's pretty good. I was expecting more. Well, I wasn't expecting more because I've been following the development of it. I guess what I was expecting more of is a jump from 10 to 11. You would expect in a jump from 10 to 11 that you would get something really big, especially because it's been 5 years now. And in the past, when Microsoft has done 5 years between operating systems, it's like a completely new operating system, Windows 3.0 to Windows 95, for example. And I was hoping at whatever point Windows 11 came out, the same thing would happen, but it didn't. But that's not really a bad thing, because remember, when Microsoft does release a big new upgrade, as often as not, you're getting a real stinker. I mean,
you never know. That's exactly right. You might get a good one, but then there's also Vista, or
that's
Windows
right.
8. Yeah,
and that's exactly right. And so, I think Windows 10 is a good, solid operating system. I think Windows 11 improves it, and if it makes it easier for people, one thing to think of is don't think of it, if you are thinking of big upgrades, don't think of it as 11. Think of it as 10.25 or maybe 10.5. But overall, I'm really quite pleased with it. And I would recommend that when it's time to upgrade, it's going to be a free upgrade if your hardware supports it. I think it's a good thing to do.
Preston, look, I just wanted to ask, there was a lot of confusion when this rolled out this summer about hardware requirements. By the way, hello, good to see you again.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if, for people who may be considering an upgrade, or companies that may have some laptops that are a couple, 2 or 3 years old and they're ready for an upgrade, are they going to be needing to buy new hardware? Or if, let's say somebody's got an old computer, they want to upgrade, will Windows 11 say, this hardware won't work? Or is there going to be, is it going to be a pretty clean bit of information that you can upgrade versus this thing's too old and don't try?
No clean information.
Okay.
Other than that, if you have a PC that's 5 years old or so, it probably won't, or older, you can probably forget it. That's probably... You could pretty much count on that. Not always, but it's a good general rule of thumb. Now, Microsoft has sort of implied that if you have a PC about 3 years old, you should be able to do it. And I think that's generally the case. And I'll go over the hardware specs in a minute, but it's not always the case. In fact, the laptop I'm using right now for Zoom, I bought about a year ago, and it will not run Windows 11.
Wow.
So just be aware that it's not quite as rosy as Microsoft implies.
Do you know why your current laptop will not upgrade? What's holding it back?
Yeah, so there's something called the PC Health Check app that you can run from Microsoft that will tell you whether you can upgrade to Windows 11. If people can't find it, the app, it's free, downloadable. Just go to my review of Windows 11. I include a link in there. And so what it reported to me was that my processor wasn't compatible, which really surprised me because it's only a year old. Yeah. So it really surprised me. What could I say? It's not going to run Windows 11, which isn't a bad thing for me because I upgraded another PC to Windows 11. Now I have 10 and 11, and so can continue to test both of them out. What you'll need, though, is pretty basic hardware at this point, really, a gigahertz or better, 2 cores, 64-bit, but it has to be on Microsoft's list of supported processors. I don't really understand what separates some that meet those specs from others that don't, other than that it also has to have what's called a TPM, Trusted Platform Module 2.0, and it needs that for security. Microsoft has decided that for Windows 11, security is above all the most important thing. Not really a bad idea with the successful increase in attacks everywhere. And so with TPM 2.0, what it does is it offers hardware-based security. So it's hardware-based encryption of your hard disk, hardware-based encryption of passwords, those kinds of things. It's not a bad thing at all, but on the other hand, it is a gating factor. And that's why run the health app first. It's for free. It only takes a couple of minutes, and you'll find out ahead of time whether or not you're eligible to upgrade.
Yeah, we were talking earlier when Michael Simon was on, sort of comparing Windows 11 and Mac OS. And one of the points that I'd made, and I may be echoing something you said earlier, is that, the move from Windows 10 to 11, because it really is an incremental excuse me, upgrade more than a radical redoing. And I wondered if that was because of the security things that you're talking about, that basically this is Microsoft's sort of subtle way of convincing people that this is all new and therefore worthy of an upgrade. And, the security things that they've built in, in and of themselves should encourage people to upgrade. But, maybe that explains it from 10 to
I never
11.
thought of that. I never thought about the numbering, because, if you do say Windows 10.25, Windows 10.5, people, so what? Big deal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But right, you say Windows 11, and even if somebody doesn't know anything about it, Windows 11, it's free, upgrade. Wow, that's great. I'll get it. That sounds good to me. And you're slipping in what's really important, which is the security underneath. And it's especially for enterprises. I mean, it's less important. The TPM 2.0 is really less important for individuals. It's really enterprises that are targeted by this stuff, because let's face it, I don't know what your bank account is like, but mine isn't worth hacking into. And so,
Well, they could hack in, they just wouldn't get anything.
yeah, that's right. That's what I mean, though. It's
Yeah.
not worth their time and their effort. So, I really think that the security stuff is primarily for enterprises, and it's
Mhm.
nice. Consumers got to go along for the ride.
I mean, that's sort of a great place to transition and talk a little bit about what and whether. I guess obviously no IT team is going to roll this out immediately, but I do want to talk a little bit about any specific other features that you can pull out that are enterprise focused, but notably Teams is not.
Well, yeah. Why don't we start with Teams?
Sure.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's odd. Teams is right there on the taskbar. There's an icon.
Mhm.
Click Teams. It pops up a list of all your contacts. Click your contact, and a message gets sent. Preston Gralla wants to talk to you, and you can chat or do video. It's clean, it's simple, it's easy. It's really, really very nice. But it's not for businesses. It doesn't include all the enterprise level things. It doesn't include channels, which is absolutely vital to
Mhm.
Teams. Otherwise, it's not worth using. It doesn't include the ability to search through all your messages. I mean, it doesn't include all the things an enterprise would want. None of them, except chatting, is inside this version of Teams. I'm trying to figure this out, and the only thing I can think of is that we live in a world where increasingly products don't come in through IT. Increasingly, products come in through people who start using them at home for personal purposes, and then they say, you know what, I want this at work, and sometimes they'll use it at work.
Mhm.
And then eventually it gets into the enterprise itself through the back door. Tablets, I mean, the list is long and getting longer all the time. So the only thing I can guess is I kind of wonder whether Microsoft is trying to get people hooked on it for personal use. And at that point, that way they'll be able to sneak it in and want to, ask the IT people, why don't we have Teams? Because not a lot of people are really using Slack, which is the Teams competitor, and Teams. There's not a lot of companies that are really using that yet. So I'm guessing that this is Microsoft's way of slipping it into the vast number of businesses that right now aren't using any kind of collaboration tool, who don't even, you ask them what Slack, they'll say, what? You ask them what Teams is, they'll say, never heard of it. But oh, you mean that thing that I use on Windows 11? I like that. I wanted to talk to my best friend the other day. He's in San Francisco, and so that's the only thing I could figure out, because otherwise it logically makes absolutely no sense.
It's a good theory.
Yeah, it's a theory. Who knows if it's true?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, Preston, because you're absolutely right that a lot of technology gets into the business now from people using it at home. That's how the iPhone suddenly, arrived, and 15 years ago. And it makes sense that, Microsoft is clearly pushing Teams and wants it to be part of, your software suite at work where you get stuff done. So if they have a version that you start using at home and then you go to work and ask your IT guy, hey, can I put Teams on my computer here? Can you do it so I can communicate with my coworkers elsewhere in the world or in different time zones? Then, that's a win for Microsoft. And then they get the subscription and it's a double win,
Mhm.
That's right. And I can imagine in the long term, even an upsell directly inside Windows 11. I can imagine at some point that they do have enterprise features just waiting to be unleashed. but you can't get to them unless you start paying for it. I can imagine that happening at some point too.
Yeah.
Aside from that, there's really not much here for IT security. And like I said, Teams isn't really for IT. One of the things for IT, though, we'll be really happy about is that it's only a once a year upgrade rather
Nice.
than the twice a year,
Good point. Yes.
which to all of us may not be a big deal, but to IT, for them having to do it once a year rather than twice a year is a really, really, really good thing. And I guess maybe because Windows 10 and Windows 11 really are so similar, no new tools for deployment for IT, whatever tools you're using now to deploy, to maintain, all that kind of stuff, to patch, to upgrade, just keep using the same thing.
That actually must be a huge relief. That's a really good point. Because it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be a slightly painstaking process to upgrade people, no matter who you are, no matter how many people you've got that you need to manage. So I guess as we're sort of wrapping up here, I guess I want to know a little bit about the rollout itself. So this is, like you said, Ken, like a sort of a slow, long exit ramp and a long entry.
Long exit ramp for Windows 10,
Yeah.
long entrance ramp.
You had a much
That's how I described it earlier.
that's a much better way of phrasing it.
Yeah.
So I guess the remaining question is, who is eligible for the upgrade when? If you have the correct hardware and you're a consumer, you don't have IT looking over your shoulder to make sure that you don't upgrade or can't upgrade before you're supposed to, can I upgrade today as a consumer?
No, you can't. It's very odd and confusing.
Mm-hmm.
This Microsoft says that new eligible devices will be offered the upgrade first.
Mm-hmm.
What's a new eligible device? Something I bought 6 months ago? Something I bought yesterday?
Right.
Something I bought 2 months ago? I don't know. And Microsoft's not saying. So they obviously have some plan, but they're not telling us what that plan is. And then the only other thing they'll say is that everybody should be eligible to upgrade by the middle of 2022. And it'll be available via Windows upgrade. That's the way people will be notified. But there's a clear plan in Microsoft's mind, but not in my mind or not in people who follow this mind. I don't even know the numbers. I don't even know, is it 1% by tomorrow, 10% by tomorrow?
Sure.
Next month, what percent? I don't know, except Ken is right on target. Slow uptake and slow outtake for Windows 10, which will probably be around, a lot of times old versions of Windows live on for a really long time. I think Windows will live on longer than any because of the hardware issue. So I think Windows 10 is going to be with us an incredibly long time.
That is certainly what we have gathered. So I feel like we've gotten over this last, let's say 30-ish minute period of really robust understanding of what Windows 11 looks like, what it is, who can use it. So before I let you guys go, is there anything else that you're absolutely dying to talk about Windows 11? It's okay if the answer is no, because I'm sure in the comments people will let us know.
I've got a question for Preston. Preston,
Yeah.
Do we think there'll be a Windows 12 someday?
Well, one time we talked, Ken, I said I didn't think there was going to be Windows 11, so I don't know. I guess there will be. And the reason I'm guessing there will be is because of something you said, which is the idea that Microsoft wants people to upgrade their hardware to be more secure. So even though this does not really rate as a true point upgrade from 10 to 11, they're calling it that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of Microsoft's strategy for the future, that when it wants, for whatever reason, when it wants people to get new hardware, whatever those capabilities might be, maybe it's voice input, I don't know, brain implants, I don't know, whenever
I do not want a Microsoft brain implant, please. No.
Yeah, exactly. But it could be that whenever they want people to do that, they're going to call it a point upgrade and give it just enough, because there are nice new features in Windows 11, give people just enough reason to upgrade to that new one.
Fantastic. Well, Ken, Preston, thank you both so much for calling in and talking about Windows 11. Ken, thanks for hanging in there with us. Really appreciate it. And thank you all so much for watching this episode of Today in Tech. If you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up and you can subscribe to our channel. You can also hit the bell icon so you're notified every single time we post a new video. If you have any outstanding comments or questions or just statements about Windows 11 that we didn't cover that you'd like to express, please do leave them in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.